In this powerful episode, I sit down with Rich Lyons, CEO and founder of Life is Sales and former CEO of Lyons Consulting Group, who shares deeply personal stories about vulnerability, growth, and leadership. From his childhood experiences of being an emotionally sensitive kid to navigating the complexities of marriage, fatherhood, and business, Rich opens up about the hard work of emotional intelligence, building trust, and redefining masculinity. He offers wisdom on holding space for emotions, setting bold goals, and creating meaningful connections in both life and business. This conversation is a raw and inspiring look at what it means to lead with intention, resilience, and heart. Join us as we explore the importance of choosing to trust, embracing vulnerability, and cultivating a culture of service in every way. I'm your host, Katherine Jelinek, and this is the Expanders Podcast, presented by The Skinny Platform, the place for entrepreneurs with something to share and who want to be heard. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today with Rich Lyons, the CEO and founder of Life is Sales, which is also the title of his book, soon to be released in 2025. And he is the former CEO and president of Lyons Consulting Group, which had a successful exit in 2017, being sold to Capgemini. Rich is also a board member on 5 and counting boards, a philanthropist, a father to 2 grown daughters, and an intentional husband to an amazing wife. Hi, Gertrude. Okay, so welcome, Rich. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, so glad to see you. So this is my opening question to guests. In your childhood, when was the first time you felt an inner spark of what you desired to bring, be, or do in the world? When's the first time?
Wow. That's a thought-provoking question. I mean, I think it's really interesting, and maybe I'm not answering the question directly, but you can guide me back. But I was a very emotional kid, so I think I felt different in that way and sometimes a little bit on the outside because I felt things very deeply. And I thought, especially in my era, like I'll be 60 next year, growing up, you weren't supposed to be emotional, as a boy, as a man. So I think I felt different and I had this weird kind of, how do I fit in with everyone? I was bright, but I was also very emotional. Then I became an athlete and I don't know if I felt a spark yet at that point, but I did feel a spark that I could make a difference by fitting in with a lot of different people. I didn't have to over identify. Like I was a unique person where I was an athlete, but I was also a scholar, right? So I knew very smart people and hung out with them. I knew athletes and hung out with them. I knew burnouts and hung out with them, and it was like I was accepted by a number of different groups and I could cross groups and I didn't have any judgment about that. So I don't know if I would have identified it then, but I think that skill has taken me a long way in my life and my career to be able to see people for who they are, not what they do, and accept them for that, and I think that emotional intelligence has been something I put away for a long time because I decided I'm going to be an athlete and I'm going to be tough and I'm not going to share. But then that didn't work well, when I got in a relationship with my wife and we got married. So then I kind of took on this journey of reclaiming my social emotional intelligence and integrating that to have a choice to understand and be very aware of what I'm feeling, but then I could still choose what I want to put out into the world and how I want to be. But those emotions are always going. So being okay with that, at times I wear my heart on my sleeve. I mean, I always laugh like I can watch a commercial and cry, right? I think, getting married and having children and especially having 2 daughters, it's kind of like the Grinch analogy where your heart grows 3 times or maybe 5 times. And I feel that, right? Like, I feel like anything having to do with children and my kids, I feel, they'll look at me, we're watching a movie and they'll be like, really, Dad? I'm like, I'm crying, but to be okay with that I feel things deeply. And if I need to be tough and want to be tough, I can do that too. But that you can be both, like this whole, like, toxic masculinity. We just finished Movember, and I'm a big supporter of that men need to learn how to talk. There's too many suicides. Like, I know 6 people, I think, 3 I went to high school with who took their lives. We're kind of on a tangent now, but I just feel it's important, you know, to be able to say ouch, to be able to be hurt, not just mask everything with anger, and to choose to make contact with people and reach out when we need help. We all can use help. We can all use friends.
Wow,
That was
Rich.
a
First,
long answer to what you
yes,
asked, but
you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about your friends.
yeah,
Please.
it's nothing you expect, but people go through a hard time and then they can't reach out. I coached soccer with a guy for many, many years, like, well, AYSO soccer from the time our girls were together, maybe 5 to 12. I mean, we coached together a long time, and he was always upbeat, always ready to go. Always, he would come to my happy hours that I had over in the Civic Opera. He was always there, right? Until he wasn't. And I think everyone was shocked. Like, that's not the guy that you would think would take his own life. And, tons of people at his funeral, but it's heartbreaking when you think, you know, you're there for other people, but you're not always there for yourself. So I think for men especially, and that's for everyone, but for men especially, to be able to have some close friends and to be able to reach out and to get, hey, I'm feeling hurt. That's just normal. Hey, I'm feeling afraid. That's just normal. Right. And it's not just about being angry, but that's okay. It's normal. It's just a feeling. I still get to choose how I want to be. I have people I can reach out to. I can talk to people. I have coaches. You know, there's mentors in my life. And sometimes we just need to talk. Like, I had a mentor all through my business, and sometimes I go in there literally in tears, like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if, this business is going to last, right? And to have someone who remembers why you're doing it and holds your purpose for you. And then other times I'd go in there and I'm feeling great, and then I get my ass kicked, right? Like, what about this? Or, you need both. It's kind of like the boxing analogy. Like, when you go to your corner, like, sometimes you need to get your cuts fixed, but sometimes someone needs to smack you in the face, like, wake up, let's go. And I think we all need that. And I think it's important.
It's really important. We need each other. People need each other. But you're making a really important point, in my opinion, about especially male vulnerability. I mean, we're talking about this world like it's an emotionally intelligent world, and or at least more so. And still, I think what you're bringing up is a really important topic of discussion because male vulnerability still gets mixed messages.
It
And it's
does.
still not an easy world. Like my husband, we have 2 young kids. It's a tough time for dads in this phase. We're 5 and 3 and 2 boys. So I'm all about like
Wow.
expressive, sensing men. I have such great men in my life. And Rich, you're huge. You're a beautiful example of an emotionally intelligent, emotionally connected man. And I'm so lucky to have so many of those in my life where they're, not perfect people, but whole and expressed and connected to others. Important stuff. And it's not necessarily, society doesn't offer easy places for men to have vulnerable connections and relationships unless you seek them and build them, hire coaches and do things on purpose. I feel like there's a lot of options for like women's circles and things that, I mean,
More than men, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's just more available. But I want to go back to your childhood and lead into, talking more about male vulnerability. But, you were a sensitive child, an empath, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And you really felt the need to shut that down or block it off because I'm guessing it felt like too much. Tell us a little more about that time.
Yeah. I mean, I think my parents were very young. I mean, my parents were both in college. My mom gets pregnant. She has me. She's 21. So it's funny, I was born in East Lansing, Michigan. They're both Michigan State students. Of course, I then went to University of Michigan. So, I was the outlaw for the family. But I think it was, I mean, chaotic. I think to grow up, you know, we had our kids much later, right? And I still didn't feel ready. You never feel ready to have kids. But I think as the oldest, as a man, I felt like, I had to bring order. I don't know if that's typical, but I felt like, it was my job, right? And I held that forever. Like, if I could be good enough, if I could be a good enough kid, and it wasn't my responsibility, but I think I took it on. If I could get good grades, if I could be a good athlete, if I could not cause trouble, I could keep my parents together. And that was kind of my deal, right? We make deals. And my parents did divorce. My parents divorced when I was a sophomore in high school, and I felt very betrayed by that, at that time. Like, I did my job, like I did it, right? And this is bullshit, and so I grew up fast with that. My dad moved out. I had a younger sister. um I was then the grown up, right? I was the adult male, the alpha male. So I'm going to take care of my mom and take care of my sister. Um and that kind of made me who I am. But I do think, there's a cost of everything, and I wouldn't change anything. Because it made me very responsible and maybe overly responsible for things. But at the same time, it took me a long time to come back to what I want. I think when my I think I had told you this story maybe before, but when
Mhm.
Gertrude and I, my wife, when we got engaged, and then she had a boss at the time who was going through a divorce. He said, like, if there's one thing you should do, you should work on your communication. And so go see my friend, Dr. Bob. And she comes home and she asked me, I'm like, no fucking way. I mean, I literally was like, no, like, why would we do that? Like, I was 24, like feeling on top of the world. Everything's great. Like, do you have some secrets you can't tell me? Like, I was very suspicious. It wasn't something in my life, this concept of coaching or therapy. It wasn't a thing, right? And it wasn't a good thing. It meant something's wrong. So we go see this guy, and I swear I was like this, sitting there, and he tells the story. I was literally like, well, because I was very like, this is bullshit. Um, but you know, hindsight, like, that changed my life. It changed my life. And we saw someone who was very good, but he kind of read me my story without knowing anything about my story. And I was like, dude, how did you do that? Like, you're the oldest. It was probably this. You probably took care of your mom. It was this. It was that. And I was like, dude, I didn't tell you anything. Like, how could you know any of that? Like, that kind of like magic, like, you're magic. Like, so he got my attention, and we used him to help plan our wedding. So that was our first thing as a couple. Like, here's, like, how do we want our wedding to be? Our first conscious act as a couple together. That would We were holding it, with his help, that this sets the precedent for the rest of your life. This one event, this one act. So what readings do you want? And let's be intentional about that. What, songs do you want? Everything, right? We face the congregation, which, people are usually backs to the congregation. So, and we held it like, hey, it's your job. The reason you're here is you're going to listen to us make promises to each other, and you have to hold us accountable, because we will forget. And you're
Yeah.
our community. So please hold us to be the best we can. So that was kind of our start, and before that, I was kind of like, my wife would want to talk about something when we're dating. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about it. I'm going to bed. Like, a total conflict of order. Why? Well, my parents divorced. I never saw productive conflict. Like, they fought. I never saw it resolve into anything. It resolved into a divorce. So I'm like, anger equals divorce. So you can't be angry. Well, I had to learn, relearn that. Like, being angry and conflict is necessary and can be very good if you're fighting for something, not against something. And I had to, he asked me, coming back to the story, he's like, Rich, what do you want? Like, what will make you happy? Like, if you think about this wedding ceremony and the celebration, what makes Rich happy? And I thought really hard about, tough question kind of, right? And I was like, well, if Gertrude's happy, then I'll be happy. And that was a real answer. He's like, no, 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 like you, not about Gertrude. What makes you happy? I'm like, well, if all the guests have a good time and Gertrude has a good time, then I'll have a good time. Like I didn't understand the question because I was so used to being out there. Like you say, being an empath, right? Like I was used to like read other people and that's how I'm going to be and manage and manage. But what do I want? I don't know. He kind of coined like you have a broken wanter, right? Like I was afraid to want anything, like it would be too disappointing. So, I mean, I think we all have, our childhoods and no one has a perfect childhood. At least I don't think anyone has a perfect one. So we all have our things to work on. And I think that's kind of our life's journey. And you marry someone so you can work on them together. And so, that, Gertrude can push all my buttons, and put her finger in my wounds and turn them. And, and you get to, I love her so much. And, it's probably like you love and hate, that person the most. But if you hold it that way, like we're growing together, right? And we kind of would say like we're a highly paid consultant to help each other become our best, right? And we're going to hurt each other and we're going to fight. But if we're fighting for something, and sure, sometimes, we all get reactive and we all get destructive and we all have to repair. But it's part of it. And if you close the back door, like we closed the back door early, like no one gets to use the D word. Like you don't get to throw the divorce word down. Like that one's off the table because we can work through anything. We can, right? So I think that was a lot for me, like a lot to kind of come back to that and learn again. And actually, can I really want something without then feeling like I'm going to be let down? I always had this thing like the other shoe was always going to drop. Like I was always scanning because there's some upset that was going to happen. My mom or my dad, like I'm trying to just keep things calm. Like let's chill this environment and just be safe and be like, well, I'm not that little kid anymore, right? I'm a grown adult. I choose to trust. Like I literally choose to trust people. That's my conscious choice every day. When I meet someone, I'm going to trust them. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and until they prove me otherwise. But I choose to live that way. I'd rather that than I'm not going to trust anyone and then they have to earn my trust. I'm going to trust everyone. I want to live in a safe world. And if I get screwed or something happens, I'm a grown up now. I can take care of myself, right? I can react. I can take care of myself. I can be there for myself instead of the other way. So that's my choice. And sure, I've gotten screwed before and people can be assholes, but I'd rather live that way. And that's, you know, I can handle being hurt. I didn't think I could when I was that kid, but I can now. And hurt is just a feeling like, okay, that's great. You hurt my feelings. I've got something to learn. That's cool. Um, and if it wasn't important, it wouldn't hurt, right? And
Hmm.
fear too. Like it's funny with fear. Like you ask someone, like, "Are you afraid?" And everyone's like, "No, I'm not afraid. Why would I be afraid? What? Really? I mean, we're always afraid all the time. Like think of the definition of courage: facing fear.
Doing
But
it
wait a
anyway.
second. Like if you say that you have no fear, then you can never be courageous. You could never be courageous if you have no fear. I mean, and like I think the problem with men and me was I always thought fear meant 10, right? Are you afraid? And you're like, no, I'm not at 10. I'm not peeing my pants. I'm not shaking. But if you think of fear 1 to 10, like getting in an elevator is a scary event. It's very uncomfortable. And when I say scary, like translate it however you want, but it's uncomfortable. Like which way you're supposed to face and are you supposed to say hello or not say hello? Or you say, oh, nice weather, and someone doesn't respond at all. And then so your feelings are hurt. But that's like, I mean, I'm not crying. It's not a 10 level hurt. Like maybe I'm hurt at a 2 or a 3, but that's cool. I mean, I don't know what's going on with someone else and I'm still alive. I'm not bleeding. I think I'm still breathing, you
Yeah.
know. But I think the awareness, like I think if there's and maybe not back to your question, maybe not back there as a little kid. Um, but I think it started back there. Like my mom would always talk about, like I would teach my friends, right? Like because I was smart, I would have friends over and I'd help them with their math or help them with their studies. And, and I kind of understood people. Um, and I think that's what I still am trying to do. Like, if I could build awareness, like one person at a time, one leader at a time, one company at a time, if I can help with a culture and if I can help them be aware leaders so they can create a culture, then I'm leveraging myself across a lot of people. And when I say awareness, it is feelings, right? Fear, hurt, anger, sadness, joy. Let's be simple. Like, we're all afraid. We all get hurt. We all get angry. We all feel sad. We all feel joy. And we all, and if you ask someone, they only want to feel joy. Well, life doesn't work like that. And I think when you think about the times you remember, it's very funny. Like, a lot of times you remember like the shitty things that happen, the big mistakes, or, when you reminisce about something, like we think about our wedding, we're like, remember your aunt tripped and fell,
Oh,
remember like we couldn't find my dad. And, he was an alcoholic. He's passed now, but it was like, we found my dad in a bush, like literally in a bush, so upsetting things at the time, but when you look back now, you're like, you remember those things and they made it special in its own unique, crazy way, right?
the life part. Yeah. It's like real life. So I want, there's several questions popping up, and I might just throw a few at you and see where you go with it. Okay. So one is then how did you learn to reopen as an adult? Because when I hear you say you're walking around choosing to trust, that's a state of choosing to stay open rather than close to defend and protect. So, and I know you had good chats with coaches and you had Gertrude, but more than just like who you talk to, like on the inside, how did you actually reopen? I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I think I realized that, and if whatever you want to call it, like I was calling it stoic, that just wasn't going to work. I mean, number one, it wasn't who I was anyway, but it was a tactic. But I don't know, it happened over time. I mean, a lot of it was doing kind of some of that harder, painful work, like digging into, myself and all my fears. Like, we all have, imposter syndrome, like, just these things. Like, was it okay that I feel that? It's funny, I coach entrepreneurs and I've got a couple leadership groups, and one of the guys runs his company is like, when do I stop feeling afraid? And I was like, I mean, I don't mean to laugh, but I was kind of like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, as your company grows, you're going to be way more afraid. Like, you think you're dealing with problems now? Just wait. Bigger problems, bigger customers, bigger. I mean, so to reshift this concept, like, we're not supposed to be afraid, to be like, no, I'm building my capacity so I can handle more fear, so I can handle bigger problems. Like, I'm building my capacity literally. Like, I'm an electrical engineer, right? So I think in terms of flow and current and capacity. Like, I'm literally like, capacity is like positive and negative charge between two plates, right? So I'm building my capacity to hold charge in my body and still be able to function and remember my purpose. Super hard, right? Like, people talk about regulating emotions or um, choosing, but if you're not aware, and I'll say it for me, like, mine leaked, right? Like, I didn't want to have any feelings. So guess how mine leaked? Through drinking. Like, my dad was a binge drinker. I was a binge drinker. I didn't know, like, when someone's a binge drinker, like, they don't drink that much, but when they drink, they drink. And that's how I was. Like, I didn't drink that much, but when I went out, like, I kind of drank to forget. Not a very good use of alcohol. I mean, but then I would do stupid things. And what were stupid things? Like, my anger would leak out. I'd be overly competitive. I would pick fights. And I mean, I'm lucky. I think I have a guardian angel that I never got my ass beat, to be honest. Like, I was just crazy enough that people left me alone. Or I had friends that would pull me out of the bar, like when I was being a jerk. But, this is a separate topic, but that's another thing about society. Like when you drink, you get kind of a pass. I remember the next day and I was a jerk and I did stupid stuff and people were like, "Oh, you were just drunk. Like don't worry about it." Like it wasn't me because I was drinking. So then it wasn't me. So then your anger could leak and you could be a total jerk, but you get a total pass. And that was very wrong. So I mean, I haven't drank in over 30 years now, but I mean, not to say there's anything wrong with drinking. It was the way I used drinking, and I needed
Mhm.
to express my emotions then more responsibly. Instead of just trying to keep them pent up and then they would leak out. And I see entrepreneurs. I remember being, with you and Ramen at Unto and talking to entrepreneurs like, are you trying to consciously set up a culture based on scarcity? Are you consciously, trying to create a culture based on reactivity? Because you're leaking it all over. And it's like those emotions come out. So can you be aware and choose is different than avoiding. So
Right.
when I started getting this concept and I learned this model that was just about awareness, like can I be aware of my fear and choose to trust? Can I be aware of my own hunger and my hurt and choose to affirm myself? Can I be aware of my anger and reactivity, but choose to assert myself and actually have an intention and try to get something? Like it seems basic, but in the moment, just to be like, there's this tornado going on inside me, tornado, right? All kinds of feelings, fear and hurt and anger. But then I still am the author instead of the excuse like, oh, it's just going to leak out. And, that guy who cut me off, like, I'm going to fucking blast him, right? Like, because I'm going to go crazy and have road rage. But think of it like, if I have all this energy, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to just leak it out and just spew it and get rid of it? Or can I hold it and contain it and be like, what do I want to do? If it's a limited resource, if I only have so much energy, and this energy is just feelings, right? It's all of that fear and hurt and anger all mixed up. But if I can say, where do I want to direct that? And what's my purpose? And what can I do with this energy instead of just diffusing it? Use it to get what I want. So you have to stay, you're in a meeting, you get thrown off, it happens, someone says something, my feelings are hurt, I'm pissed. What am I trying to do in this meeting? What's my purpose? And that's where my intent is going to go, and use it. Use it. So I learned this model. I started getting this concept. Wait a second, like my rational mind can help my emotional self make sense of this. I'm an electrical engineer. There's this flow concept. Where do I want my energy to go? Like I can choose, do I want to use it over here, which is wasting my energy, or do I want to use it over here, which could be using it for a purpose? Can I choose where I'm burning, you know, that energy and where I want to direct it? And of course I can. Now, we all mess up. I still mess up, in the moment. But I have this concept of I can repair, but I can come back. And if I'm aware, then I have choice. Without awareness, I have no choice. So I started playing these games around awareness, right? And starting learning like, wait, I can just be aware of it. Fear. Of course, I'm afraid all the time. Um, but I can choose how I want to be with it. Like, one of my coaches used to say, like, people would say, oh, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? So you have an excuse. You can be a jerk. Like, I'm grumpy all day. He said, listen, no matter how you wake up, you still get to choose how you want your day to be. I was like, oh, wait a second. Let me think about that. I mean, I don't have an excuse. Like, I can't blame. Like, if you ask Gertrude, my wife, I love to blame her for everything. I mean, I'm a great blamer. Like I'm really good at it. I can rationalize, but I know we laugh about it now because it's kind of a joke, right? Like everything's her fault. But I think if I could teach people and, I'm still learning it for myself, like we're all on this journey together, like I'm the author of my life. There's nothing that happens that I do not author consciously or unconsciously. And I talk to people about intention. Like this is hard for everyone to take, including me. You want to know what your intention is? Look around you. That is your intention right now. All of this around me, I have intended consciously or unconsciously. So what is the therefore of that? If I want something different, my mom's not changing it for me. My wife's not changing it for me. And we all want a mom to sweep in and, take care of everything for us. But I need to change it. So the question is, when you're bitching about something, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
Waste your energy bitching about it or change it?
Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting with that. And no, totally. I'm on the same page, Rich. It's definitely always harder to do than to
Yeah.
say. Um, so the first step is obviously feeling it, the awareness, the like, whoa, hello, big
I think
emotion.
that's the major step is,
Hmm.
number one is just being aware. You don't have to do anything, but for me, it was just, could I just be aware? Didn't even
Yeah,
have to change anything. No one has to know about it,
yeah.
because I was afraid if I became aware of my feelings, like a dam was going to burst and I would just be
Mhm.
walking around crying.
Oh, for sure.
Like that
And
was my
especially
fear.
the
Like if
feeling.
you open it up, I'm done. Like I'm just going to walk around weeping and I'm going to be like a sad sack, right? That didn't happen. I mean, I obviously had my times, right? And, kind of had to heal some past wounds and kind of go through some of that tough work that I didn't want to because I was putting that away in the vault, never to come out, So to start catching up on that stuff. But I do think the awareness is the key that kind of unlocked it for me, like just to be aware. And I didn't have to do anything, right? Aware I'm afraid, aware what someone did just hurt my feelings. Because I would walk, it was funny, I use this example. I remember walking into a meeting in my company, Lion CG, and you walk in and you just hate everyone. Like you ever have that sense like you walk in and you sit down and there's nothing. I mean, these are all people that work for me and I hate them all and I want to kill them all. And I'm not quite sure why. Like that was kind of my first realization, like, okay, let me back up. And this kind of concept of why am I so angry right now? And kind of back up, like literally trace my steps back and track myself back. Like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, and then like, oh, like someone said something 2 hours ago that I didn't really think about, but it's stuck in my craw and I'm hurt and I'm really angry about it right now. So then it's
Hmm.
kind of like you go back 2 hours and then you just go whoop and then catch up to yourself. And now I'm back here in the meeting. I'm like, okay, I don't hate all these people. Now I'm kind of back to the present and I can be here. I mean, crazy concept, but gosh, it started to work for me. Like I could use my rational mind to kind of like make sense of what the hell was going on and, around me and in me and just be
Yeah.
like, try to normalize it. Like it's okay. Like
Hmm.
I'm the grown up now. I can almost watch myself and be like, oh, wow, that's crazy what you just did. And
That's
then
so wild. Look at you, you
like,
crazy.
wow, dude, that was really a good move. I mean, parenting is a great
Oh my
place. I mean,
God.
you're in it now, but I
Totally.
remember, you say all these things. I'm not going to do what my parents did. I'll never say that. And then it comes out your mouth and you go,
What?
what did you like?
Yeah.
Brilliant parenting move. Like, because I said so or whatever it is, like, yep, good one. Good one. You did it. And you just kind of laugh at yourself and go
But that's
on.
an example. I mean, parenting, especially for my experience now personally, it's intense in the younger years. And intensity in any situation, work intensity, whatever, it drives up the emotion, it ramps stuff, you know?
Totally.
Like potential for reactivity gets really high. And I mean, to your point, that's the mischanneling of things. Granted, let's take a back step, must forgive oneself because it's not
Totally.
like we don't all do it. It's very human. And then also I love what you're saying with like your electrical currents and flow and sitting with it, holding the charge, the reactive energy that's coming up
Yeah.
and directing it elsewhere in a positive place that
Yeah.
isn't just a continuation of the old pattern, you
Yeah, because
know?
that old pattern is kind of like, I'm gonna react, you're gonna react. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
we're at a
totally.
gas station and we start a fire and then we just pour gasoline on it and blow it up. Like, and you're like, what an awesome fire. Like,
Mhm. And nothing like the end of the year. It's December right now, and I mean nothing like the end of the year to like there's some serious gasoline hanging out around.
Well, you're with
Intense.
families. I mean,
Yeah.
coming into family systems and, there's always stress anyway for the holidays, but the old patterns come up. I remember like early in our marriage, even before we had kids, like we would go, like we had a kind of four sets of parents. Both of our parents divorced, right? So we'd have to go visit four sets of parents, which was crazy. And we are driving around like crazy and we're fighting. Like, you
Yeah.
know, your mom wants us to spend more time with her. My mom wants, to spend more time with her. They're counting the minutes. They're comparing gifts, like just stupid stuff, right? And we're just like, fine, you go to your mom's house. I'll go to my mom's. And you get to these ridiculous points, right? And instead of just like, let's take a breath. Like, what do we want? Back to want. And how do we be grown-ups? Like, we'd go to my mom's house and I'd start picking on Gertrude like she was my younger sister. It's like, why are you
Oh,
picking on me? I'd be like, I'm not picking on you, but you're being a jerk.
I'm just used to picking on someone when I'm in this setting with my mom. Yeah.
That's just what happens, right?
Comes out.
And you become a kid again instead of like, wait a second. We live in Chicago, we're married, we have a home, we can contribute, we can bring a dish, we can do whatever, we can create what we want to create. And it's back to that taking responsibility for what I want and intending something different versus just fall into it and then complain later.
Okay, so tell me then, how do you actually really repattern something and move into a more abundant option for your life? Like you've done some serious work and you've got some beautiful things surrounding you in your life and like real like fruits of
Yeah.
demonstrations that you made those shifts within yourself,
Yeah. I mean,
worked.
it was funny. I was just thinking about this with the end of the year coming. You have to intend it. Yeah, there's a lot of things. There's not one answer, and it's kind of funny because everyone always asks me like, "What's the one thing?" The
Mm.
magic. And there's no magic. But it is. And people use different terms, right? Like grit, determination, resilience. Setting, like, I'm a big proponent of BHAGs, right? Jim Collins talks about BHAGs, big hairy audacious goals. Like, and when I started my business, I said I'm going to be a $50 million business by the time I'm 50, right? Big BHAG, and I'm at zero. Like, I'm at zero. So a BHAG is something you don't think you can do, right? There's no way I can make that. I can't, but that's why you said it. And so but what it does is I had, actually, I think I have it in my closet. I had this big poster board and I draw this game. It's like, it looks like Chutes and Ladders. And here I am at zero and it goes like this. And then here I am at 50 million. And I just filled in a few of the blocks because I didn't know, like, hire this person or hire my first project manager. And then over the years, you start filling more in, and maybe, there's a ladder because you could skip some steps and get there faster. And it was a fun thing, but it is intention and it is setting a goal. And when you set a goal, you have to tell someone. I'm not as a big of a fan of resolutions versus goals for the new year. Like, set a BHAG, pick something, and then break it down. And what are you going to do? And how are you going to make it different? And how are you going to review it? And who are you going to tell? Because if you don't tell anyone, it doesn't count. That's the great thing. I set a goal, but don't tell anyone, because then no one can hold me accountable. That's awesome. And I can give up on it in, like, a week, which most resolutions are done in a week. So I think, how did I do it? Gosh, it's a lot of hard work. There's nothing that takes the place of hard work. I hate to say it. From a sales perspective, like, when I think about sales, doing dials and facing rejection and having meetings and putting myself out there and just continuing to push. And the weird thing I think about, like, I call it karma, but you make 100 dials in a day and none of those people call you back. But then, in a day or two, someone else calls you. And it's like you put yourself out and it finds a way to come back. But if I'm sitting there not doing anything, it's not finding its way to me. Right. But if I'm putting myself out and if I'm trying and if I'm going, I don't know, it's some karma magic. Like, I'm telling you, there's always some way that it then came back to me because my energy is going out, and maybe it's not those people, but something comes back over here. Right. And I do believe in that. I do
Yeah.
believe in that energy and that connection. And gosh, it works, but it doesn't work if you're just sitting there like on the couch waiting. Someone's going to call me. Like I had a roommate, it was very funny. He's like, I think if I sit here on the couch long enough, someone is going to call me and offer me a job. And it was a big job. I mean, we laughed. I mean, he was being funny. Like, if I just keep watching TV, someone will call me and I'll get a job. But I think we kind of believe that, right? Instead of, I got to put it out there. So I think, I mean, I always worked hard. I don't think I never wanted to be outworked. I always pushed. But I do think there's some magic in emotional intelligence. There's some magic in, like, if I know what's going on in here, I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you, Catherine, like, oh, I feel afraid. I don't have to tell you, like, hey, what you said really just hurt my feelings. I don't have to say that. But if I know it, then I'm back here. If I don't know it, then I'm lost. Like,
Mhm.
but if I know it, then I can still sit with it and choose, like, do I want to respond? Do I want to tell you? Do I want to wait till later because it's off purpose? Do I never tell you, which is fine? I can talk to my coach or I can, express it to someone else, and those are all choices because every choice has a consequence. So if I just react, like, I'm not thinking about the consequence of that reaction. But if I am churning and, okay, what's the best use of this energy now? And so I think, that was big for me. And I think having your own business, having children, like all of these things kind of put you up against everything,
Yeah.
put you up
They-
against yourself, put you up against your beliefs. I mean, um,
I also think they reflect your psyche back to you.
yeah,
Your children and your business both can feel what's going on inside of you more than you'd like to imagine. And especially with kids, I mean, they're like an emotional barometer and just reflect what we're feeling right back to us. But I believe that about businesses too. Like
I
they
think it's
reflect the
true.
health of your psyche.
I mean, we used to, like, I remember, when our kids were younger, even when we first had our daughter Morgan, and she'd be crying about something. We can't figure out what the heck's wrong with, like, change a diaper, feed her. My solution was, here, feed her. That was always like the solution. But then if we expressed, she would be happy as a clam. I mean, it was the weirdest thing. Like, she's crying, we're like, can't figure it out. And then we have to express to each other what's going on, fear, hurt, whatever. And we're crying. And then she's as happy as can be.
Totally.
I mean, speaking of barometer, and you're like, wow, that's crazy.
It is.
And I
For
agree
us,
with you from a business perspective too. And that's what I was trying to say earlier. Like, if I'm in scarcity and if I'm in reactivity, my business is going to reflect it right back to me. And it's kind of like, can I take care of, and this is the social emotional intelligence thing. Like, as a CEO, like, I always think, like, my job was to affirm my people. My job was to affirm my customers. Like, my job was to be putting it out, not trying to get it back. Well, to be able to do that, I have to really take care of myself. My self-care game has to be unbelievable, right? Sleep, exercise, eating, vacationing, coaching, everything, right? Because
Mhm.
how can I come into my business every day feeling full and affirmed so I can give it to other people? That is a huge responsibility and hard to do. But I was like, I never wanted to feel like my employees are supposed to affirm me. Like, if I'm there, like, oh, no, no, this is me. No, this is about me. No, I mean, my name is on the wall, right? But, oh, it's about me. Give me affirmation, get customer, give me affirmation. No, I'm there to serve, and I think that was a big shift, when I started thinking life as sales and, my book, like, it's about service. I mean, it is about service and it's about trusting. Like, with my business, I was like, we're going to be customer first. We're going to be customer centric. If we do what's right for the customer, we're going to trust that everything else will work out. Not the opposite, not doing what's right for me and hopefully that works for a customer. No, like, really, what works for the customer, understanding the customer's needs, helping that customer, serving them the best we can. We want to be 100% referenceable, right? Impossible, but we want to be 100% referenceable. I try to get across to everyone, every interaction, any email, any phone call, you are representing, Lion CG. So we have to be on our game every interaction, because that's part of our brand and that's part of our service. And we're going to trust if we're doing the right thing, then everything will work out. It's a mutual thing.
Hmm.
Easy to talk about because everyone says customer first, everyone, hard to
Hmm.
live.
Hmm. It is. Something that is visible to me, hearing you talk about that example specifically, and you needing to knowing you need to resource yourself,
Yeah.
take vacations, take time off in order to, serve your team, and then they're serving the customer. You healed and figured out what you wanted. You know, somewhere in there, you are able to finally identify, hey, it's not, to just quickly, the other side of that though, and I'm a recovering people pleaser, that's what I call it, but I've been the flexible person who
Me too. Yeah.
doesn't even know what my opinions are and struggle to articulate those. In those circumstances, I am not resourcing myself, not even aware of what I need to do so. And
Yeah.
so it's just a reflection that you did that work, if that's the way you were leading, and then, sharing that idea with others that they're able to only serve when they're plugged in.
No, thank you. I think that's a great shout out, and I appreciate that. And it took me some time, right? Like you said, like, can it be a mutual thing, not an either or, but a both and I had to learn to talk more from a we perspective. It's funny, like, one of my coaches said, you got to work on your we-ness, like literally as a term, we-ness, and and I kind of did, like, because I did kind of grow up thinking it was either or, you or me, not both, not both
Right.
and you win, I lose, I win, you lose, right? And I think I came into my marriage more like that and had to learn much more about, wait, we can both win? Really? Like, wait a second. What? Like, and then to translate that, my personal work then into my business, like, how do we help our customers maximize their potential? Back to my potential thing, like literally maximize their potential while we maximize our potential. And that's the only way. Like, if we help them maximize our potential, we will be maximizing our own potential. That it's a both and, right? And so, it's kind of like, you do, people talk about purpose and stuff. And I always say, like, just be out there swinging, right? And you'll figure it out. But I'm not the type, like, I'm not a monk. Like, go sit. I've gone on a ton of pilgrimages and visited some beautiful sacred spots and had great experiences. But I feel like I discovered my purpose by being out there and swinging and going for stuff and being like, that's not quite right. Or, that's not, you kind of go like this, right? Like, you kind of narrow in, like, oh, that feels more right. And, keep working it. And, in this kind of electrical engineering, like, why wasn't I an electrical engineer? Like, what, that's random. Like, I could change light bulbs, right? Like, that was never part of me, but then to kind of put these things together, like, wait, so my business, like, we can, help our customers maximize, their potential while we're all utilizing our unique gifts and maximizing our potential at the same time. And I could build a culture and build a company where we could be best in the world at that through serving our customers first and trying to be 100% referenceable and doing the right thing. And, I used to make the joke, like, we had, budgets for accommodations. I used to say the bigs, like Accenture, they had budgets for lawsuits. And we always, we're not going to sue our customer, and that was a hard lesson to teach even my people, my developers and things. Like, they're like, we didn't do anything wrong. Like, the SOW says this and we didn't do it, that's not right. And I'd be like, it's not about right versus wrong, right?
Mm.
Fairness is a really interesting concept. Like, what's fair? You know what I mean? And a customer has a different perception of what's fair versus what we do. And I'd be like, listen, this is a $10,000 give in a $3 million customer. And of course we can fight it. And, what the SOW says and this and that. And I said, their idea of what is fair is this. And so we have to be, the customer isn't always right, but it is kind of on the edge of the customer's always right, right? You figure out how they're right. And if they think that's fair, and that was a lot of times my negotiation would be like, what do you think is fair? Like, Catherine, what do you think is fair? Like, should we split it? Like, what if we split it? Is that fair? And I want you to feel good because I'm looking at your side of the table, right? And that's not always easy to tell someone, like, put yourself in the customer's shoes. Like, really put yourself in the customer's shoes and sit on their side of the table. They could lose their job. Something's going on with them. When their website goes down and they call and they're screaming at you, don't get reactive. Think about them. They could lose their job. They could get fired. They're losing potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars every minute that website is down because it's, Black Friday or Cyber Monday. So they're freaking out. So I did training. We trained our people. We trained our people in consultative professionalism and how to say yes and. I trained our people in the whole developmental model that I was talking about with you, that so they could identify fear and hurt and anger and not take it personally, but just identify and be like, okay, I understand how you're feeling. Let me check into it and I'll get back to you. That's all they want to be heard. They just want to be heard. They don't want to be like, no, it's not our fault. That's definitely not our fault. We didn't do it. They don't give a shit about that. Like, put yourself over there. They just want you to be like, I hear you. I'm going to check into it and I'll get right back to you. But that's training people. That's training my company to be able to handle charge.
Yeah.
Because no one likes to be yelled at.
No. And we are not programmed to say, I hear you. We're programmed
No,
to defend.
no, for sure. And I mean, I remember when I brought account managers into my company, and these people were like magic to me. Like, I'm a conflict avoider, right?
Mhm.
Like, I talked to you about that. I avoid conflict. If that customer calls me and they leave me a message and they're angry, I am not calling them back. Like, I'm wait till tomorrow because it will chill it out. And sometimes that's a good solution. But then I hired these people, these account managers. They never would make a cold call to save their lives. They're not the hunter, right? Different personality, breaking down doors, call. But they're the person, like, once you introduce them, they're that person's best friend. They're the advocate. And I remember hiring them and they'd get a call and they'd call right back. Like, what's going on? Like, how can I help you? Like, and that's not me because I don't want that upset. Like, it's too buzzy for me. Like, I got to wait and I got to call them and they'll be calmer tomorrow. These account managers, they'd be like, boom, like, yell at me. Tell me what's going on. Tell me everything. I'll fix it. And it was amazing. It made a huge difference in our company, to kind of separate the hunters and the farmers and someone that's really that customer advocate to live what we're talking about. If we're saying we're going to help you maximize your potential, we're customer first. Well, that's your person. And they will take your call and they will call you back and they will fight for you. And those were all hard things. Everyone's like, oh, it's a free resource. You can't justify that.
Mm.
Of course
But
we
that's
did. We did. We
wonderful
did justify it and it worked out great. It was unbelievable.
and wise of you to put people with different capacities
Right.
and natural dispositions and different roles to be able
Right.
to
Which is crazy, right?
approach it differently. We've got all these terms for it,
Yeah.
sales and account management. And what it comes down to is you've got a disposition to be able to handle certain emotional experiences better than
Yeah.
some.
To be able to handle that upset and be like, I'll figure it out. I'll help you. And that's service, right? And I remember we were filming videos for this training course. And we were trying to do the bad and the good. Right. And we had this one guy, Kevin, awesome. Like, he was military trained and, he called me sir. How can I help you, sir? Like, just like he's very trained. And he worked in our call center, like our support center in Rockford, Illinois. And so he was used to getting the calls. And we bring Kevin in. We're like, all right, we need to film the bad one. Like, you need to do it wrong. Like, the customer calls. So he's pretending, he's doing a role play and someone's calling him and he's like rolling his eyes. And it was like, he couldn't do the bad. Like, cause it was so not him. We're like, Kevin, like we're doing it as an example. Just do the bad. Like he could, it was like it was so against who he was as a person. He couldn't, like, we had to coach him to do the bad, which is, and like to your point, it's like you find the right people for the right roles. But I do think, culture is my next book is on culture. And I already started writing it, but it would be called Business as Culture. And I do, people talk about culture and you put words on a website and you say, oh, we're customer first or we're customer focused and we're employee this and we're employee that. And it's usually not worth what it's written on, right? I mean, like, because that's hard. I mean, walking the walk, like we had to do the trainings, we had to do different things to actually say we are customer first. Like we're putting ourselves in the customer's shoes. We're trying to do this. And one time we had this concept of work-life balance, and it was on our website. It was one of our, I think I may have told you the story. It was one of our values, right? And I had a director of marketing, and she took it off the website. And I was like, what? I mean, I couldn't even help but be reactive. Wait, why did you take that? You took it off? Like you didn't ask, like you just took it off. She's like, well, it's not true. And I was kind of like, I was contained, like I contain, right? Vibrating. Like, what do you mean it's not true? Like, I'm going to choke you. Like, "Ugh." And golly, I had to process that one with my coach a lot. Like, what the fuck? Like, I remember I was really upset about this. And then, but that's why you contain so you can process and not blow up in the moment and figure it out. And she was right. Like, we're a consulting firm. Like, we don't have work life balance. So we changed it to, I mean, it was a huge service to me, and that was the type of culture I tried to build with some independence, and people were going to challenge, and I wasn't going to shout them down. I wasn't going to kill them, and we changed it to work hard, play hard. And think about this, like it went so far as like every person we interviewed, we then said, you're not going to have work-life balance. So think of that. It was a value on our, on our website, like work-life balance then we switched it. And then every person we're interviewing, we're like, you're not going to have work-life balance, even though before we said it. Then we took it off because it wasn't true. And now we're telling people it's consulting. If the customer needs something, if their website goes down, sometimes people are up, 2 nights in a row, 48 hours trying to fix a problem. That's not balance. Now, over the long haul, you could say, well, we're going to work hard and play hard, but that's not balanced in the moment. Like you're staying up for 48 hours. You can't say that's balanced, so it was an interesting thing to, over time, play with it. What's right? What's the truth? And try to build a place where people wanted to be, right? Like we
I'm
had the best
totally sure.
customers, we had the best people. So they wanted to work because we had the best people. They wanted to work because we had the best customers. And we walked our walk.
Right. So, Rich, just as we're closing, what would you like to give listeners as or a reflection as they come towards the end of the year? I love everything you have to say about potential. I love everything you have to say, especially around male vulnerability and needing to open up and share. But whatever your natural and authentic message would be to leave everyone with.
Wow. I mean, I'll leave a few messages. I do think this time of year, obviously with Thanksgiving and then into the holidays, like I'll say for myself, there's a lot to be grateful for. Like I think, I have a ton of gratitude for the people in my life, teachers, mentors, my family, my children, my wife. Um, so I think, sometimes my wife and I try to, hold the perspective, like her mom's, how old is her mom now? 94, 95, but like we can give them a little slack. You know what I mean? Like I used to argue with her mom because she's very opinionated, but now she's older, I can just kind of laugh and be like, "You're right." Because it used to be like, oh, look out there, look at that ship, and I'm like, that's an island. no, it's moving. I'm like, no, it's an island, but I don't have to be right. I mean, so I do think, there's something to being around family and stuff. And golly, just being grateful, because I wouldn't be who I am, without my parents, without my mom. My dad's passed, but my grandparents are passed too. But I do think, golly, enjoy the holidays. I mean, a friend of mine, a good friend, and his wife was a good friend. We actually introduced the two of them and went on their first date together, but she passed away of cancer. And he always says, hold hands. It's a simple message like, God, just hold hands, right? Like, oh, love the moment, right? You hear too many. We had my older daughter, one of her classmates in school, father just passed away, suddenly. And it's just, you don't know, right? So I kind of take that to heart, right? Like, hold hands, right? Like, give my kids an extra squeeze, right? Because you just don't know. I don't want it to happen. I'm not intending for it to happen. I want grandkids. I want to be around a long time. I want to live to be 100, in good health, you know. Um, but take the chance, right? Take the opportunity to tell someone that you care and that you love them. And now is a chance because you get to see people, which is great. And I'll be 60 next year. And, it was funny. When I was 56, I was talking to my leadership group and I was like, don't wait till you're 56 to let people know who you are. I think some of that has, been me opening up, being vulnerable, allowing people to see that I care and I care deeply, and let it be out there. And it's okay. And if I get my feelings hurt, I'm a big boy now. I mean, I'm not the little kid and I can take care of myself. And so I'd say that for the holidays, and then going into next year, like now's a great time to build momentum. It's December. You could build momentum. Don't wait for January 1st. Like build the momentum now. Set some freaking goals and make some steps now. Like it's so disheartening sometimes as a salesperson, like January 1st, you're at 0 and you're starting over. So how about build some momentum now? Like use it. And I'm not saying work during the holiday. I mean, take your break. I'm a big fan of vacations and self-care and taking time off and using the time off really to rejuvenate and come back ready to roll. But you can do some small things now. Set a big goal. Start thinking about it now. Make some small steps to it so you have some momentum. You're not starting at 0 or -5, like get some momentum now. Why not? So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Well, it's perfect because it easily arcs back over a big theme throughout this whole episode of open up to your life. You're like, drop our bags, drop our barriers and give those big hugs and hold hands, but just open to all of it.
Yeah, and like I said, don't wait. Like I think I did wait, a long time, and I'm still working on it, and we all are, but you don't have to wait. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, I see these, younger kids, I think it's so great they're doing some of the stuff now that it took me a
Right.
long time to do.
Truly. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rich, for sharing your wisdom and your stories and your personal background with us. I
It's
know
so
that there's
great being with you, Catherine. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
great being with you too, and wishing your family an amazing holiday.
You as well. You as well. And enjoy those boys. They'll grow up fast. My kids are 28 and almost 26. It happens overnight.
I don't believe it right now, but but I will savor what I have. Open to what I have.
Yeah. And have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you so much, Rich, and thank you for your time. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Expanders Podcast, presented by The Skinny Platform. You can catch more episodes and be notified of newly released episodes by following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or subscribing on YouTube. For more information on the Expanders Podcast and The Skinny Platform, visit our website, www.theskinnyplatform.com.